The push was a bolt of pure ice, a betrayal that shattered my world. It was not a shove born of anger, but a cold, calculated act of malice that sent me, Rosemary, a 74-year-old retired city worker, stumbling forward off the curb and into the path of a roaring city bus. The shove came from a hand I had once held in a fragile trust, my own granddaughter, Alicia. I knew that hand, had felt its warmth countless times, had clasped it in prayer and held it in moments of shared joy. But this time, it was a weapon, not an embrace. My body, which had served me faithfully for decades, a vessel of resilience that had navigated the streets of Philadelphia with an easy grace, was suddenly an alien thing, a puppet whose strings had been cut. I stumbled, my feet no longer obedient to my will, and the asphalt rushed up to meet me, a hard, unforgiving surface. Then the sound hit me, a roaring monster of a sound, the hungry growl of an engine, and the terrifying hiss of air brakes. The bus, a metal monster with a gaping, ravenous mouth, roared toward me, its headlights two blinding eyes of pure malevolence. The sheer scale of it was overwhelming. It was not just a vehicle, it was an instrument of my final moment, a mechanical reaper. The crowd around me, once a vibrant tapestry of life, seemed to freeze, their faces contorted into masks of disbelief and horror, their screams muffled by the overwhelming roar. In that moment, I saw her standing on the curb, her face a chilling masterpiece of victory, a predatory smile stretched tight across her lips. In her eyes, there was no remorse, only a cold, chilling calculation. The girl I had taught to bake cookies, the child I had held when she skinned her knee, was now a murderer, all for my pension, a paltry sum to her, but a fortune to me. The city which I had walked for decades, from the hallowed grounds of Independence Hall to the serene beauty of Fairmount Park, was now a hostile, chaotic blur. My life, my freedom, and my faith were about to be extinguished in a flash of grinding metal and shattered glass. But in that final, horrifying second, as the world dissolved into a maelstrom of terror and the scream in my lungs died, I felt it. A force not of this earth, a hand of impossible strength, yanked me back from the brink. My life was not hers to claim. My story, it seemed, was just beginning. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to the channel and press that bell icon so you don't miss our next true stories, and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Your support helps us share these messages with more people who need hope. My retirement, a quiet life of peace and gratitude, was funded by a sizable city pension. It was a testament to my decades of hard work as a city employee, a well-earned nest egg that provided me with a life of comfort and security in my small, historic home in Chestnut Hill. To my granddaughter, Alicia, however, it was not an earned blessing but an obstacle, a ticking clock of missed opportunities that stood between her and what she believed was her destiny. Alicia, a beautiful but deeply troubled young woman, was a creature of the night, living a secret life of high-stakes gambling at illicit poker games and underground sports betting rings. Her reckless lifestyle had left her with a mountain of debt, a secret so dark it threatened to consume her. She had exhausted all her options, from borrowing from friends and family to taking out predatory loans with ruthless loan sharks who operated on the fringes of Philadelphia's underworld. The threats she was receiving were no longer veiled. They were violent and specific, a promise of pain and retribution if she didn't come up with the money soon. She had spent months trying to convince me to give her access to my pension, concocting a series of elaborate lies and deceitful schemes. She claimed she was starting a new business, a fake real estate investment fund that would turn her debt into a fortune. She even went so far as to forge a series of official-looking documents, complete with fake logos and a counterfeit notary seal. She thought my love was a weakness she could exploit, a blind spot that would allow her to trick me into signing over my life savings. She had no idea that I had a far greater plan for my pension, one that involved not my own enrichment, but the building of a small, community-driven nonprofit in West Philadelphia, a project my late husband and I had always dreamed of creating. My unwavering belief in God and my dedication to my community were a fortress against her greed, a fortress she was determined to break down. She believed her final plan was foolproof: push me into traffic, claim my pension as my sole heir, and pay off her debts, leaving no trace of her crime. Alicia's world was a house of cards built on lies and desperation. Her debt wasn't just a number, it was a living, breathing entity that followed her everywhere. She had lost her savings, her car, and her apartment, all in a frantic, losing battle to win back a fraction of what she had gambled away. The loan sharks were not just a threat, but a constant menacing presence. They would call her at all hours, their voices as cold and impersonal as a funeral shroud, reminding her of the promises she had made and the consequences of breaking them. They sent her cryptic messages, leaving a single black feather on her doorstep or a crumpled playing card on her windshield, a chilling reminder that they were watching her, waiting for her to fail. Her desperation was a tangible thing, a raw, agonizing wound that festered with every passing day. She had become a shadow of the girl I once knew, her bright, vivacious spirit replaced by a hollow-eyed terror. She would come to my home with gifts I didn't want and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her hands trembling as she held my arm, her touch a cold, unnatural thing. She would talk about her business, a fictional empire built on a foundation of lies, and a single, desperate hope that she could manipulate me into signing over my life's work. She had painstakingly created a fake business website, complete with stock photos of smiling, professional-looking people, and a series of meticulously crafted press releases about her latest successes. She even went so far as to forge a series of official-looking documents, complete with fake logos and a counterfeit notary seal. She thought my love was a weakness she could exploit, a blind spot that would allow her to trick me into signing over my life savings. She didn't know that my love was not a weakness, but a shield, a fortress built on faith and years of experience. She had no idea that I, Rosemary, had a far greater plan for my pension, a plan not for my own enrichment, but for the building of a small, community-driven nonprofit in West Philadelphia, a project my late husband and I had always dreamed of creating. My husband, a man who believed in planning for every eventuality, had created an ironclad estate plan that placed my pension in a series of trusts, ensuring that I would have the final say on its use and that my grandchildren could not touch it until my passing. He had even added a series of legal safeguards, a complex web of property deeds and tax liens to prevent any hasty or illegal transfer of the assets. He had seen the greed in our family's past, and he was determined to shield me from it. My unwavering belief in God and my dedication to my community were a fortress against her greed, a fortress she was determined to break down. She believed her final plan was foolproof: push me into traffic, claim my pension as my sole heir, and pay off her debts, leaving no trace of her crime. She believed her final, desperate, and evil act was a perfect solution to her problems. It was a cold, calculated masterpiece of financial fraud and elder abuse, a scheme to get her hands on my money and pay off her debts. She had no idea that her carefully crafted plan was nothing more than a prelude to her own downfall. She had only seen the money, the opportunity, the quick fix, but she had completely failed to see the one thing that mattered most. The Lord's hand was on my life, and her wicked scheme would soon become the instrument of her own poetic justice. Alicia's final act of betrayal was a chilling masterpiece of cold, calculated cruelty, a theatrical performance with a single, brutal climax. She had convinced me to meet her for a supposed walk to the Schuylkill River Trail, a place we had often visited together for a peaceful stroll. The sun was a warm, golden presence in the late afternoon sky, casting long, peaceful shadows on the bustling city. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter and friendly chatter, a symphony of a city at ease. As we walked, she spoke of her dreams, her hopes, her love for me, her words a poison nectar that tasted of affection and smelled of deceit. She held my arm, her grip just a fraction too tight, her gaze fixed on a point in the distance, a flicker of a predatory hunger in her eyes that I, in my blissful ignorance, mistook for ambition. We reached a busy intersection near the Philadelphia Museum of Art, a place I had always loved, a place where a statue of a beloved fictional boxer once stood. She gestured to the street, a chaotic river of cars and buses, their engines a low, constant roar. "Look, Grandma," she said, her voice a calm, hypnotic whisper. "Don't you just love how the city comes alive at this time of day?" As I turned to look, she acted with a swift, brutal precision. A firm, cold push to my back sent me stumbling forward, off the curb and into the path of an oncoming city bus, its tires a silent, menacing roar. The world became a horrifying kaleidoscope of spinning colors and sickeningly fast-moving objects. The air, which had been so warm and pleasant, was now a cold, brutal slap to my face. My breath caught in my throat, a silent scream that died before it was ever born. I knew in that sickening, heart-stopping moment that she had planned this all along. Her love, her smiles, her kind words were all a well-rehearsed act, a performance designed to bring me to this moment, this place of ultimate betrayal. The bus, a massive, unyielding beast of metal and glass, loomed before me. The driver, a kind, middle-aged man with a worried expression, slammed his foot on the brake pedal, but it was too late. The front grille of the bus was a gaping mouth, its headlights a pair of glaring, malevolent eyes. The air brakes hissed, a final, horrifying gasp of air, and the tires shrieked in protest against the asphalt. The world dissolved into a maelstrom of terror, a blur of red and white and yellow, and the sound of my own heart beating was drowned out by the thunderous roar of the engine. In that single, agonizing second, a series of thoughts, so fast they were a single, coherent thought, raced through my mind. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an accident. This was a cold, calculated act of malice. I saw her face in my mind's eye, a cold, predatory smile that was devoid of any human feeling. I had thought her love was a shield, but it was a trap. I had thought her a child, but she was a predator. The air, once filled with the sweet scent of autumn, was now a choking miasma of exhaust fumes and burnt rubber. I felt a profound, bone-deep sorrow, not for my own life, which was about to end, but for the girl who had been so consumed by greed that she had become a monster. My life, my freedom, and my faith were about to be extinguished in a flash of grinding metal and shattered glass. But in that final, horrifying second, as the world dissolved into a maelstrom of terror and the scream in my lungs died, I felt it. A force not of this earth, a hand of impossible strength, yanked me back from the brink. My life was not hers to claim. My story, it seemed, was just beginning. The cold, brutal reality of the moment was a slap to my face, a violent, terrifying realization that I was about to die at the hands of my own flesh and blood. The world spun, a sickening, horrifying kaleidoscope of spinning colors and sickeningly fast-moving objects. My body, which had been so steady just moments before, was now a useless, trembling mess. My breath caught in my throat, a silent scream that died before it was ever born. I knew in that sickening, heart-stopping moment that she had planned this all along. Her love, her smiles, her kind words were all a well-rehearsed act, a performance designed to bring me to this moment, this place of ultimate betrayal. The moment the bus's shadow fell over me, a feeling of profound, otherworldly peace washed away all terror. It was as if I had stepped out of the world and into a sacred, silent space. The roar of the engine, the panic shouts of the crowd, everything fell away, replaced by a crystalline silence that hummed with a divine energy. It wasn't the silence of emptiness, but of a presence so powerful, so immense, that it absorbed all noise, all fear, all chaos. I was no longer a victim. I was a witness to a miracle. Just as the roar of the engine was about to consume me, a powerful force, as gentle as a dove's wing and as strong as a lion's roar, closed around my waist. It was as if a physical manifestation of a promise, a living embodiment of "do not be afraid," had come to my aid. I was yanked from the path of the bus with a force that seemed to defy the very laws of physics, landing not with a thud, but with a gentle, graceful landing on the curb. The world, which had been a maelstrom of terror, snapped back into focus. The crowd, which had stood frozen in a moment of communal horror, now broke into a confused murmur. They had seen me fall, seen the bus lurch to a halt just feet from where I had been. But they hadn't seen the hand that saved me. They were looking at me, at the bus, then back at me, their faces a mixture of profound relief and bewildered disbelief. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm of life in my chest, and turned to thank my rescuer. but there was no one there. The air, once thick with the acrid scent of exhaust fumes, was now filled with the light, sweet fragrance of myrrh, an aroma that felt both ancient and holy. A single, clear voice echoed in my mind, a voice not of the physical world, but of the spiritual one. It was a melody composed just for me, a comforting vibration that resonated with every cell in my body, a gentle whisper that was a thundering command. Do not be afraid, for I am with you always. It was a voice that belonged to no one and everyone, a timeless truth that transcended the chaos of the moment. In that instant, I knew with a certainty that could not be shaken that it was not a stranger who had saved me, but a promise. The stranger, the hero, was Jesus, a silent, humble servant who had delivered me from the hands of my own flesh and blood. He had not just saved my life, he had restored my faith, giving me a second chance to live a life of purpose and grace. I was a living miracle, a testament to his unwavering love, and I knew, with a bone-deep certainty, that my story was far from over. The world had tried to silence me, but God had given me a voice, a purpose, and a second chance at life. The fear and confusion of the moment were replaced by a profound sense of gratitude and unshakable belief. My body, which had been a puppet whose strings had been cut, was now a vessel of grace. I was not just Rosemary, the elderly woman who was pushed into traffic. I was a living testament to the power of divine intervention, a beacon of hope in a city of millions, and a warrior with a new and profound purpose. The air, which had just been a cacophony of screeching tires and panicked shouts, was now thick with a tense, electric silence. The bus driver, a kind, older man with a shocked face, was the first to speak, his voice a strained whisper as he looked from me to the bus and back again. I don't know how you got off the street, ma'am. 1 second you were there, and the next you weren't. His words, a factual testament to the impossible, seemed to hang in the air, a silent confirmation of the divine hand at work. I stood there, trembling but whole, a living testament to a miracle. My granddaughter, Alicia, stood frozen on the curb, her face a mask of disbelief and pure, unadulterated fear. Her meticulously crafted plan had failed in the most spectacular and public way imaginable, and the victory she had tasted only moments before had turned to ash in her mouth. A police officer, his face a mixture of concern and bewilderment, approached me, his hand resting on his service weapon as if to ground himself in a reality that had just been shattered. "Ma'am," he said, his voice a gentle, calming presence, "are you all right? What happened?" The question hung in the air, a simple request for a complex truth. With a strength I didn't know I had, a calm that felt as if it had been borrowed from a higher source, I looked him in the eye and spoke. I didn't tell him of the angel, of the profound peace that had settled over me, or of the voice that had echoed in my soul. I simply told him the truth, a truth as solid and unyielding as the Philadelphia asphalt beneath my feet. I pointed a steady finger at Alicia, who was now trembling uncontrollably, her eyes wide with fear and her body a mess of shaking limbs. "She pushed me," I said, my voice as steady as a rock, devoid of anger or accusation, simply stating a fact. "She pushed me into traffic to claim my pension." The word pension seemed to hang in the air like a hammer, a single, damning word that exposed her entire motive. Alicia's face, a second ago a picture of fear, turned a brilliant, bloodless white. In her panic and her terror, she began to make a series of fatal mistakes, a frantic, unhinged torrent of lies and denials that did nothing but confirm my story. "No, I didn't. She fell. She's lying," she shrieked, her voice cracking with desperation. She's got dementia. She doesn't know what she's saying." Her lies, her frantic, useless explanations, and her complete and total unraveling were a symphony of her guilt. Each desperate lie was a nail in her own coffin. She had planned this crime with a cold, cruel precision, but she had never considered what would happen if the plan failed, if the world didn't go according to her meticulous design. The officer, a veteran of countless city streets, looked at her with a look of profound pity and sorrow. He didn't even have to ask me for confirmation. He just knew. The onlookers, a silent jury, now began to murmur, pointing at the shaking, crying woman on the curb, their own whispers a chorus of confirmation. "I saw her do it," one woman in a floral dress said quietly. "She pushed her." The officer, after a quick exchange with his dispatcher, calmly placed Alicia in handcuffs. Her protestations and pleas were now just a pathetic backdrop to a divine plan that had unfolded with a perfect, righteous justice. As the police moved to detain her, Alicia panicked. The sight of the handcuffs, the cold, metallic glint of them in the afternoon sun, was a physical shock that shattered her last vestiges of composure. She turned and ran, a frantic, stumbling figure of pure, unadulterated terror. She ran blindly, a desperate animal trapped in a corner, her mind a dizzying blur of panic and regret. She ran toward the iconic steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, a place made famous by the Rocky movies. She had always been a fan of the underdog, of the fighter who never gave up, but she had never understood the true meaning of a righteous fight. She took the stairs 2 at a time, a frantic, desperate escape, her lungs burning, her mind screaming. The stairs, which had once been a symbol of victory and resilience, became her final trap. She stumbled, her foot catching on a loose piece of concrete, a small, insignificant flaw in a monumental structure, and with a horrifying, sickening crack, she fell. The fall was a violent, brutal, and final act of poetic justice. The impact was a brutal, bone-shattering confirmation of her downfall. The world, which had been a kaleidoscope of a desperate escape, dissolved into a maelstrom of white-hot agony. The pain was not just physical, it was a punishment for her sins, a searing, soul-deep fire that consumed her. She was taken to Hahnemann University Hospital, where her body was put back together with a series of titanium rods and metal plates, a cold, mechanical mockery of the human body she had so carelessly tried to destroy. But the prognosis was a sentence far more brutal than any jail time. Her legs, which had carried her in her frantic, useless escape, were a shattered, twisted ruin. The spinal cord was damaged beyond repair. She would never walk again. She, who had tried to take my life for my pension, was now a cripple, her body a prison of unresponsive muscles, a living, breathing testament to her own greed. The iron doors of her prison cell would be her wheelchair, a cruel and fitting irony that served as a constant reminder of her crime. She was arrested in the hospital, where she was confined, helpless and immobile, a prisoner in her own bed, a fate far more cruel than any I had to face. Her greed, her arrogance, and her pride had led her to her ultimate downfall. Her life, which she had so desperately tried to control, was now a slow, agonizing descent into a living purgatory. She was no longer a free woman, but a prisoner in a body she couldn't use, and a prisoner in a mind she couldn't escape. The nightmares of the bus, the blinding lights, and the voice of the officer asking, "What happened?" haunted her nights. Her days were a slow, agonizing blur of pain and regret, a constant reminder of the life she had tried to steal and the life she had now lost. She had been so consumed by her plan, her single-minded focus on my pension, that she had never considered the possibility of failure, of a world that would turn on her and punish her with a justice more profound than any human court could deliver. The police investigation, now fueled by my testimony and the public outcry, became a relentless force of righteous fury. They found the forged documents, the fake business website, the paper trail of her mounting gambling debts. The meticulous crime she had so carefully orchestrated was now a detailed, undeniable case file, a testament to her cold-blooded malice. The evidence, once a secret locked away in her heart, was now on full display for the world to see. The media, a ravenous beast hungry for a good story, seized upon her downfall with a chilling glee. She became a national symbol of filial betrayal, a cautionary tale, a twisted monument to her own greed. Her face, once a portrait of youthful innocence, was now on every news channel, every newspaper, a national symbol of a monster hiding in plain sight. Her life, which she had so desperately tried to seize from me, was now a mangled ruin, a twisted monument to her own greed, a living, breathing prison of her own making. Today, I live a life of profound peace. My city pension, once the target of a vile, greedy scheme, is now being used to fund my nonprofit in West Philadelphia, a place of hope and healing, a place where people who have been victims of abuse and neglect can find comfort and strength. Alicia, my granddaughter, lives a quiet life in prison. She is confined to a wheelchair, a cruel and fitting irony that serves as a constant reminder of her crime. She is not a victim, but a living, breathing monument to her own greed, a cautionary tale to anyone who thinks they can outsmart God. The final lesson is a simple one. She tried to steal my life, but God gave me a second chance. She tried to claim my pension, but God gave me a new life of purpose and peace. If you are struggling with a family member who has betrayed you, or if you feel you have been a victim of abuse and neglect, remember that faith is not a passive act. It is a shield that can transform the storm into a sanctuary. Don't be a victim. Be a miracle. Your support helps us share these messages of hope and resilience with more people who are searching for their own beacon of light in the darkness. Thank you, and may God bless you in your darkest moments and beyond.